and welcome to a brand new season of The Link Up. Good morning to those of you having breakfast in Vancouver, and I know that you like to join us. Also, those of you having lunch perhaps in the UK, and those of you having dinner somewhere in South Africa and China. It's certainly nice to have you join us, all of you across the world and also here at home. We're on a different day. It's Thursday, so make a note of that in your calendar, in your diary. Looking forward, certainly, to another session of the Link Up and, making new friends and new linkages here at home and abroad. Today, 5 strong ladies. That's right. Each dynamic in their own right will be joining us. Each of them contributes to our society in positive ways. Today, they help us advance the theme, Finding Your Happy. We're living in a time of adversity and trials and challenges. How do you find your happy? How do you go about your day-to-day duties, whatever they are, your job, your career, and still manage somehow to find your happy in it? International Day of Happiness is on Sunday, the 20th of March. So, joining me today will be Director of the Best Dos-Santos Laboratory here in Barbados, Dr. the Most Honourable Songee Beckles. Also Consultant Manager of Home Isolation, Dr. Adana Grandison. Personal Development Coach, Maria Collymore. Tourism Consultant, Dr. Kerry Hall. And to help us celebrate St. Patrick's Day, because that's what today is Irish Barbadian, that's what I like to say, Loreto Duffy-Mayers. She will be joining us. So it's going to be a highly informative and entertaining link up today, Thursday. Can't wait to get started with Dr. the Most Honourable Songee Beckles after the break. There's someone that I have wanted to chat with for a long time. I know that she's been a very, very busy lady these last 2 years and has been awarded for her tireless efforts and certainly her contribution to the entire nation during the pandemic. So I'd like to say a warm welcome to Dr. the Most Honourable Songee Beckles. Nice to have you join us.
Thank you. Good morning. Nice to be here as well. Thank you, Peter.
Fantastic. And thank you, first of all, for all that you've done and all that you continue to do. And now it's time for me to pick your brains. So, I've often wondered, how do you do what you do? I mean, we get the numbers at night and we forget that they're actual individuals who are going through testing and so on and blah, 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 you know, to actually give us those numbers to keep us on track. So how is it done? A little sneak peek behind the scenes, if you will.
Well, I would say that it's done by a wonderful team that I have here at the lab. It certainly cannot be done by myself alone. We have a group of young individuals, young professionals, and they give their all every day, every night, to ensure that they can meet their targets in terms of getting the results out as soon as possible, so that everyone has an idea, for those who have been tested, their status. It's a real team effort, whether it's the persons who are actually receiving the samples, the persons doing the testing, and I cannot forget the persons who are our results distribution team, who actually send out the results on our behalf. So it's a big team. It's a wonderful team effort always, every single day, and they give their all every day.
We are certainly highly appreciative of the work that is done by the laboratory, and certainly I know I have put them on my prayer list, you know, because in dealing with all of those samples, I just wanted you all to stay well. So I know that I'm not the only one who did that. So thank you for that. But you've studied and I would assume researched. Did you ever think you would butt up on a coronavirus named COVID-19?
Most definitely not. I think the closest we came to something similar to this, at least in my career in lab, was when there was the H1N1 scare a few years ago. And so in our minds, you know, you're kind of prepared for that kind of response. At the time we went through, similar to what we did this time as well, we had specific training for it, and I had support from PAHO and I think the CDC at that time. And as we know, that didn't really peter out into a huge outbreak. At least here in Barbados, it didn't. And so when we heard COVID, to be quite honest, my core team, who was even here for H1N1, we thought the same thing. Okay, we'll go through the training, we'll do some testing, and it will fizzle out like everything else that comes our way generally for the new viruses that come on the scene.
Right.
But COVID definitely told us, you know, this is not going to be as easy as you have done in the past. We're going to stick around for a whole while and give you a lot of stress. So it was definitely a whole lot different, and we did not expect it, to be quite honest.
What did you learn, or what have you learned over the last 2 years that you didn't know before? What has it taught you?
I think it has taught myself and probably my team resilience. I think we have been through lots of challenges. We've had our ups and downs, you know, the challenges outside of our control, outside of lab. When we think of procurement, when we think of the logistics of receiving reagents and supplies, the challenges associated with that. But then even interning in the lab, when we became at some point overwhelmed with the numbers of samples that were coming in. Like I said, when we first started testing, it was only 6. It was a team of 6. And we did everything. We were here sometimes to 3 in the morning, just doing tests, and there were just a few hundred tests. And then we went into thousands of tests, and now we have an entire team in the lab of 40, just around 40 persons. So you can imagine from 6 to 40 what that meant for us, what that meant in terms of samples coming in. So many things changed over 2 years. I tried for us to be able to keep up with the demands and the changing pandemic and the waves that came with it. So I think for me, it has taught us to prepare for the unexpected, but resilience. And I think for me, what I think about my team when I think of what we've been through, I think we need to adapt. We've learned to adapt quickly. We've communicated a lot, and whenever things change, we have to act quickly to meet that change, to avoid any major problems. But you have to meet each challenge head on. You can't shy away from it, because if it's there, there's no getting away from it. You just need to figure it out and deal with it. Sometimes it doesn't work as you expect, and you just have to go back to the drawing board and try again. And that's the whole thing. Never give up. Never give up. Never give up. I think there was at one point in time when I thought, you know, this is just going all wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And my team was like, no, we got this. And we fought on.
Good, good. One of the things that I wondered was in terms of your equipment, in terms of your testing supplies, you speak of reagents. Did they also have to adapt with the speed of COVID and the way in which it mutated and created new viruses? Well, not new viruses, but variations of.
Yes, yeah. So for us, our core reagents that we use are standard. We've used the same general reagent throughout. Because the COVID-19 has specific characteristics that don't change. Of course, there are some mutations which causes additional changes, and then there are specific reagents to identify those. So for example, when we had the Delta, or we had the Alpha wave and Omicron, there are specific characteristics. If you want to identify the differences between those particular variants, there are additional specific reagents that you can use to then say, okay, this is a Delta wave or Omicron wave or an Alpha wave. But generally, even the standard reagent that we use, it will still pick up any of those particular variants that we have had. So that's what we've been using. But of course, any specific ones, we've used CARFA to help us to do the sequencing to identify which ones. But then we also got the specific PCR reagents that can give us a proxy or tell us this is definitely a Delta or Omicron or an Alpha as well.
Tell us about you just mentioned CARFA. Tell us about your linkages with those regional and international bodies. CARFA, I would assume the CDC and WHO and so on will find their way in there somewhere. But how does that work out? Do you all have weekly Zoom meetings or, telephone calls in the middle of the night saying, hey, look, there's a new variant coming and we're now seeing it in XYZ. How does that communication work?
No, it is not as hectic as that. I think my major calls and later has really been nationally through the EOC. But in terms of our linkages with international and regional agencies, those have been in existence long before COVID. And so for us, it was just another virus or another condition perhaps that we just, use them to have those collaborations to figure out how to identify certain things. So for example, PAHO WHO, our regional office, those were the persons who alerted us, okay, look, this is coming, we're going to get you trained up, and they send a virologist into Barbados to train us on how to do the testing for COVID. Of course, we had the molecular experience, so it was pretty easy for us. It was just a new virus, new reagents, and we had to just learn how to be able to identify with those particular reagents. So that's how PAHO has been there with us throughout. I mean, we've had a lot of staff. We even have some staff from Cuba, as you may have remembered. We do have a Cuban delegation here in Barbados, nurses, doctors, and we have 4 lab techs. And they are phenomenal. I think for us when they first came, it was very difficult because they don't really speak much English. So imagine us in the middle of a pandemic trying to figure out what we need to do and then having to try to translate it into English for someone else to understand. So it was a little bit of a struggle at first. But again, PAHO was there for us as well because their virologist speaks Spanish, the one that came. And so he was able then to have training with them in Spanish. Excellent. So that was better able to put over what we were trying to say to them. And so we got them on board a little better in that way as well. In terms of the other regional agencies, like I said, CARFA has always been in the Caribbean assisting, and they stepped up as well for COVID. They did have weekly, and they still do send out weekly flyers and bulletins on what is going on in the region and internationally. And as they had the developments with the variants, they developed the technology, or the technology through PAHO was done at the University of St. Augustine. And so we tapped into that resource through CARFA. So we would send our samples to CARFA, and they had the relationship with the University of the West Indies in St. Augustine campus. And so they facilitated in that way as well in terms of doing genomic sequencing for us. CDC has always been here with us along the journey as well. They have been instrumental in providing some reagents, supplies, and consumables based on our needs. So their rep here in Barbados would have reached out to us and say, oh, Songee, we know a lot is going on. Is there any way we can help? When there were challenges on the market in terms of getting even simple things like tubes and extraction reagents, they were there for us. We also had another agency, IAEA, who also stepped up and sent us a lot of stuff, reagents, supplies, even some equipment, biosafety cabinets and PCR
Wow.
machines and other equipment and supplies as well. So I think it was really in Barbados, and I'm sure throughout the Caribbean, it was really an international, local, regional, and inter effort to help everyone to address COVID. So I think all of the agencies, local, regional, international, have been phenomenal. And I would not like, I cannot go without mentioning the volunteers that they were in
Oh,
Barbados.
yes.
Yes, I mean, they treated us like queens and kings in here. They made sure every day they would send us stuff. They would send us, whether it be cake or sometimes they would send us sandwiches or whatever, but they always kept us in mind. And a few days a week they would come by and they would drop off little snacks for staff. And staff were really, really appreciative because when you're here at 2 and 3 o'clock in the night and there's a lockdown and you're hungry, there's nowhere to go.
No.
And so you always had a backup, and they came in great as a little backup to always have a snack, always have something there that to keep us going.
Right.
So I would
Thank
say a big thank you to them as well.
Thank you to them as well. Definitely that has been one of the amazing things, the generosity of spirit that we've seen a lot of people step up with, again, that quote that I like to share with everyone, that adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. So it's, a wonderful thing to see. But you've mentioned the positives, yes, but what didn't work? What do you see that just didn't work?
I don't know that there was a lot that didn't work. I think we met challenges, and so because based on our prior system, our paper-based system, I think when we started to become overwhelmed with samples early, that became a hindrance to be able to get things out done in a timely fashion. But then we were able to get our IT team and a consultant to assist us in developing a system where it took away some of that manual manipulation of forms to enter the result, to enter samples into our lab information system to make the turnaround time a whole lot better. So I wouldn't say necessarily that things did not work. I would say we had some stumbling blocks along the way. But one way or the other, we were able to find a way to address them and to meet them. And I think what I would also say that government has been very, very supportive of what we have been doing. And when we reached out and said we do need assistance with, if anything, they have always assisted us however they can, whether it be with additional staffing, additional resources to procure reagents and supplies, assisting us, even reaching out for us on our behalf to other persons outside of our usual suppliers to be able to step up and reach persons that we could not reach, because there was a point in time when our usual suppliers could not facilitate in terms of supplying the items, reagents, and supplies that we
Okay,
needed. And
Songee,
they actually reached out on our behalf.
we respect the fact that you are busy at work. I'll tell you what, I'll let you do answer that person in case it's really urgent. We'll take a quick break and we'll come back.
Thank you.
If you've just joined us, welcome to a new season of The Link Up. Today we're taking a look at finding your happy. And this is amidst all of the challenges and so on of everyday life, a life that we have now living with COVID-19. And today, our first guest, very busy, and we really appreciate her joining us, Dr. the Most Honourable Songee Beckles, who is the director of the Best Dos-Santos Laboratory. So thank you very much, Songee. I think it would be remiss of me if I didn't note, that I'm talking to a human being here, someone who is running a very important lab, yes, who has, the health and welfare of a country, pretty much in her hands, but she's also a human being. So let's talk about how this pandemic has affected Songee Beckles personally, if you don't mind me being nosy, and I usually am, so go ahead.
Yeah, so for me personally, I think when I look back at what has happened throughout the last 2 years, I think one of the major things has been family, the sacrifice of family to be able to put in the hours that I did. So I do have 3 kids, 21, 12, and the other one will be 10 this year.
Wow.
So it meant is almost 2 years of their life that I was not absent, but not there for as I usually was, because I was usually the person who would be doing all the running around with them, taking them to their activities, taking them to school, picking up all the doing everything basically, or a lot for them, most of it. So obviously then that means that I was not able to do that. So for me, sometimes I feel like I have missed a part of their life. And sometimes when I look at them, so they've grown so fast. Where have they gone in such a short space of time? I feel like I have to catch up on what I've missed. So for me, for that, but they understood. I would say even the young ones, they were like, mommy has to work. Sometimes my daughter would say, she's the youngest, you need a vacation. Just tell them that you need to take a vacation. And I would always say, I will get a vacation, but I have to do this because I really do love my job. And once I'm into something, everything else kind of spreads out in the background, so to speak. And so they understood and they would support me, and they would always be looking out for me and call me and send me little messages every now and again. So that kept me going as well, but they understood. They never really complained. They were happy that I was doing as they saw my effort to assist Barbados as well. And I like that about them. So for me, that's where I think some of what has happened. I think I had other goals along the way as well. I trained myself to be fit, and I think I lost some of that along the way with all the hours of not being at work and not being able to go to the gym. But 2022 will be a different year. I am trying my best to get back where I wanted to be and to get back into the gym and really put the effort, health-wise as well, to do that.
I know that, in terms, we always talk about our physical health and our physical well-being, but there's also, the mental well-being as well, and keeping fit. Going to the gym is certainly one thing, but how do you find you're happy?
To be honest, my happy is work and kids.
Wow.
Once my kids are happy, I am happy. For me, mentally, the gym, that's my outlet for me, and I enjoy doing it. I enjoy a good workout. I enjoy the company of my friends and family as well. So finding some time in between to do that is also important for me. But that is really me. Sometimes I think I have a very boring life. Even before COVID, it was work at home, kids, and that's it for me. I'm happy with that.
How do we live with this virus that doesn't have any intention of leaving? It's holding on really, really close. How do we live with it? What advice do you give people? And what advice would you like to share with those who are watching us now, like Barbara, who said hi from New York?
Okay. Hi, Barbara. I think for us, we just need to be vigilant. Of course, it doesn't seem to be going anywhere. We see that there are variants that are changing. And I think we have to take this experience with us and to remind ourselves that things can change very quickly. I was just talking to my friend sometime last week and said, I remember in 2019 seeing someone walking around with a mask, and it was like, I could never do it. When God would anyone want to walk around with a mask on their face all day? And in less than 6 months, we all were walking around with masks all day. And so, things can change so quickly, and things that you least expect to happen can happen. But what I think we need to do is always be vigilant, adhere to the public health advice. I know sometimes it may seem you're tired of it, and it seems like a burden, but at the end of the day, if it protects lives, it protects your life, it protects others, it protects your family. And I think that is the most we can do. We need to just constantly be observant of what is going on around us and always take the necessary precautions. Don't take unnecessary chances. And that happens with anything in life, not just health. In anything that we do, we have to be careful. Everything in moderation is so have to be wary.
Definitely. And to your staff, you remind them of what?
So I think we just remind each other of, this benefits all of us, us personally, our families, and everyone else. And I think that is the driving force. It's not about us. It's really what can we do to contribute to our country to help and make everyone safe. And I think that is what drives all of us. What we can do. And if I can just add a little something here in terms of what I say to my staff, because it's not only staff in the lab that I have. I mean, initially also when you think about persons coming in, I was also at the airport a lot validating tests for
Yes.
passengers coming into Barbados. And I have a team of 7 young ladies up there as well that are now fulfilling that role, as we have obviously more tourists and everything, visitors coming into the island. And so they also are there on the front line working really hard, putting in long hours, and they enjoy it. I mean, they don't complain much, and whatever comes their way, they try to deal with it, and they just enjoy what they're doing, regardless of the long hours that they work. And I told them and some of my other staff, when I watch them and see how they have grown and how they respond as things come up, I look at them as eagles. And so I read this little saying that someone sent me a few weeks ago, and I even shared it with some of them. And it said, ducks just make noise and complain. Eagles soar above the pack. And for me, that's what they don't complain a lot. They don't, I mean, of course, if something is there, they may say, but they don't let that be the driving force of what they do. They see it, address it, and they just fly. And to me, my team, they're all like eagles.
I love
They're
that.
just soaring.
I love that. Ducks keep noise and eagles soar. I love that. I love that. May you keep soaring, Songee, you and your team. And I certainly hope that, the next mutant or mutation or variation or whatever we want to call it takes a long, long time before it rears its ugly head. Give us an opportunity to experience life once again. You stay
I totally
safe.
agree.
Stay safe.
Thank you very much. You
And
too as
thank you
well.
for joining us. That was
Thanks for having me.
certainly someone that I've wanted to connect with for a long time. But, appreciating how busy she's been, Dr. the Most Honourable Dr. Songee Beckles, and the director of the very busy Dos-Santos lab. Someone else who's also very busy is going to be joining us next, Dr. Adana Grandison, and she's the consultant manager of home isolation. And we're going to find out just where we are with that. And we're also going to find out a little bit about how she finds her happy when we come back. Dr. Adana Grandison is no stranger to the Link Up and many of our shows here on TV8 because one of, I think, her roles in life is to give back. You know, chatting with her, she did mention that that is one of the ways that she looks at life. And she certainly kept us informed and up to date over the course of the last 2 years. And certainly nice to welcome her as the first guest for our new season. Well, one of our guests for the new season of the Link Up, Dr. Adana Grandison. Nice to see you this morning, Doc. I call her Dr. G. You know, so I think I will continue to do that today, Dr. G. Nice to have you join us.
Nice. Thank you so much for having me, Miss Alleyne.
And there she goes again. I've told her that Miss Alleyne was my aunt before she got married, but she's still, you know, anyway. It's okay. I will answer just the same because today I want to find out, where are we? It seems as though everyone has forgotten that we're still in the midst of a pandemic. I'm seeing lots of people walking around, masks under chin, you know, talking in groups, really, really close. And so I just want to remind people, hey, you know, we're opening back up, yes, but we've still got to, you know, keep our guard. So where are we, and where are we with home isolation?
So thanks for the question. So yes, here in Barbados, we are at an all-time low, I must admit, in terms of the home isolation program. We are just shy over 1,000 persons in home isolation, with the vast majority, over 600 of them, continuing to be well. Okay. Yes, we have had, I mean, this year has been a complete roller coaster in terms of over the last 2 years, and certainly since the home isolation program has started. But I believe that with the reopening of the country, this is really now a time for us to engage in a bit of self-governance. And so I think now more than ever, it's the time, as Songee would have stated earlier, to ensure that we practice and really put into good practice quite often those non-pharmacologic interventions. Certainly the mask wearing. I know that some of us have slipped in terms of wearing that mask properly, but I just want to remind persons that even before we had vaccines available, that the masks were actually working, and they continue to work. Within the medical fraternity, we as doctors, we are seeing ill persons every single day, and we keep ourselves safe in addition to being vaccinated with the use of masks and wearing our masks properly. So certainly the use of masks is very important, but I cannot overemphasize the importance of hand washing. Outside of COVID-19, we have always been taught to wash our hands properly, and we have seen the benefit of hand washing. Certainly, even prior to myself actually starting home isolation, I would have been working in the field with Seek and Save as a swabber. And it has always been an opportunity whenever we derobe, to the point where we actually started to carry water within our vehicles and stuff like that, so that we can hand wash on site. And it has kept us safe. We had very few persons within our team actually ever catching COVID, and certainly all of these non-pharmacologic interventions are what we hold near and dear, and has actually helped us.
All right. Well, we've got to, I'm told we have to live with it. So this is a good reminder that, we got to live with it, but live with it safely and live with it carefully. So when you talk about masks and hand sanitizing, I think the physical distancing is going to be a thing of the past. As people tend to forget and the Lego kind of thing. I think that's going to be a thing of the past. So I think it's going to strengthen that mask wearing and hand sanitizing to see just how well they work. But I'm happy to see that the home isolation, you know, is down. I remember those numbers that we heard in the past, and it boggled the mind, and you thought, oh my goodness, is this ever going to decrease, or will it only get, you know, worse? And happy to say that we're on the other end now. But it doesn't mean that we're out of the water yet. And full disclosure, you know, I was in contact with 2 positive cases, and the masks and hand sanitizing worked. I was fine. I was negative, so it works.
It does, Peta. Certainly, I can tell you there are many close contacts as some person who swabs and certainly interacts with COVID positive persons. Wearing a mask helps. Wearing a mask protected me over these last 2 years. I have been lucky that I have not been infected by SARS-CoV-2. I know it is a very real possibility, and neither should I say at this point in time, should SARS-CoV-2 infection be something that is stigmatized. I know quite often we get very scared with the unknown. COVID turned up quite quickly, and it was very scary for us, even within the healthcare profession, because it really caused us to pivot and to learn at possibly the fastest rate that we have ever learned at. And I would say with increased education and really coming to understand this virus as it has evolved over the past 2 years has really shown us that there is really no reason to fear, and any person at any point in time can be susceptible to this virus because we're all amongst each other. We're all breathing, working in close proximity sometimes with one another. And so there's really no need to, for instance, place a family member out of the home or really stigmatize them in the workplace because it could be any of us. This really should be treated like any other respiratory illness. And so it is really for us to know our status and then to really put measures in place, and as a small community, a small group, a work office, to ensure that we keep each other safe and really be essentially your brother's keeper.
But we place stigmas on so many things, and yes, you speak, you know, of it being done sometimes out of ignorance, and I mean that in the truest sense of the word, in not knowing, being afraid of the unknown. But when you look at now, say, mental wellness, your mental health, and that was something I brought it with Dr. Beckles just now, because I said, you know, we often look at our physical, but we tend to shy away, I think, from our mental, and that is just as important to our overall well-being, you know, as just, you know. So let's take a look at that, because you all have had, I think, some of the challenges, you know, that anyone can take, far more being blindsided many times with various variants. How do you deal with your mental wellness? And I'm not asking you how do you take care of it right now. How do you view it? People think of going straight to depression, but even before that, you can have like cases of the blues, just feeling sad, you know, getting into a good old funk, you know. So let's talk about that.
So I think you really touch on a very important point. We only really start to focus on anything mental related when it becomes mental illness. And I really think that mindset needs to change. There's the importance of mental wellness and ensuring that you maintain mental wellness. And so even, especially during this pandemic, I would say if it wasn't important before, which I know it certainly is, this pandemic has really taught us how to put that to the forefront to ensure, because yes, you can really tough it out, have long hours, but if mentally you are not well, then it becomes extremely difficult to be able to continue your responsibilities to even function within the confines of a home. Certainly, the home isolation program, and I have a wonderful team, and it is a very large team from the home assessors, the medical assessors, the concierge group. We also have the swabbers on our team, and I cannot forget, I must tell you, I have an excellent ops team. And our ops team, as well as our call center, our ops team, I mean, they go above and beyond. They're the persons who really handle all of the logistical coordination, to ensure that persons get to and from their home to the other facilities. And there are times where we have had some very, very serious calls where, for instance, they had to pull on their skills of basic life support via the phone to ensure
Wow.
that we could lend aid to persons on the other line. And it is mentally taxing, and to be able to help coach them and walk them through, and then also to debrief and to talk to them and to ensure that they are well is important. And so I think that if we did not normalize mental wellness before, this has really taught us as a group of persons, and certainly has taught me to really value mental wellness. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me personally, what I can tell you is that I take the opportunity to mentally thaw. Even as a medical student, I thought it was important to mentally thaw. You work, you do everything, but you don't always take time for yourself. But it's so important to mentally thaw, to really, decompress and get all of that, sometimes all of that information, all of that mental overload out. And
Mm-hmm.
having a support network is so important. Having some person that you can talk to. It can be some person that you find, yeah, that's a close friend, but we can also start to normalize speaking to maybe a psychologist or even a psychiatrist if you're not coping well. Because it is important, as healthcare professionals, we always will let persons know it is important that before you get to that crisis event, before you have what we call a complete blow up of the situation, it's always best to try to talk it out, to rationalize it out. It also helps you, certainly, to get a different point of view. You may be banging your head against the wall thinking, there's no other way that I can get out of this situation. And sometimes having that conversation, talking to a friend, having a good support mechanism where there are persons, your cheerleaders, your personal cheerleaders talking to you, it allows you to be able to appreciate a different point of view, and you come back and refresh and you can take on the world.
I remember in discussion with someone when we were talking about this, um, and she noted, like me, she's a hugger, and she has spent 2 years unable to hug, and she didn't realize how much that would affect her until she couldn't. Um, and so it was finding different ways to connect. You talk about your friends, and these are friends that are tried and true.
Absolutely.
You've been through the trenches together, and you know that they have got your back, and you have theirs. So when we come back from the break, I wanna take a look at, I don't know, when you mention psychologists and psychiatrists, immediately I know there are people out there, my viewers, who have gone, nah, I am not crazy. Because there's this idea, as soon as you hear those titles, that, people immediately think that, but that's not the case. And we're going to chat with Dr. G about that on the other side of the break. Dr. Adana Grandison is joining us today on the Link Up. Dr. G is the consultant manager of home isolation, and today under the theme Finding Your Happy. Now, I mentioned before the break that some people take, the whole idea of making an appointment to see a psychologist or a psychiatrist as meaning taking that someone is saying to you that you're crazy, and I don't even like that particular term because it just means that you're unwell, but no, that's not it. It's to prevent you from getting that far, to kind of rein it in. I never thought that I would be someone, prone to panic attacks, but I found myself one day in the middle of this whole, experience that we've all been sharing, starting to get pretty panicked. And it helped to talk with someone, over the telephone, it's true, who is trained in recognizing just what you're going through and to bring you down from it. So let's talk about that, Dr. G.
Absolutely. So, especially here within the Caribbean context, we tend to see mental health disorders as something that we should be ashamed of. And it really is not so. We also have a challenge here in Barbados, certainly with seeking the assistance of a professional, even when something is well. I often tell my patients it's simply not about coming to the doctor when you're ill. It's also about coming to the doctor to ensure that you remain well. And certainly mental wellness should not be seen any differently. The same way that your blood pressures can become dysregulated and they suddenly start to increase without you feeling any different. Certainly you can start to feel overwhelmed. And you may not notice that you are not coping as well as you possibly should be. It may take some person on the outside or someone who's close to you saying, I've noticed a change in terms of your behavior. I noticed that you're a bit more aggressive, or you find yourself withdrawing from everyone. You're really not yourself. Sometimes it may be something as simple as they can't put their hand on it, but they've noticed some change. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with speaking with a professional. Mm-hmm. Whether that person is a psychologist or even a psychiatrist. We have known the importance of certainly having that type of professional on board, even within the home isolation program, our own psychiatrists within the program. And we offer those services to persons who are not coping well, who just need someone to speak to, persons who may have lost someone within the COVID battle, or they're just very fearful of the unknown. And certainly we tend to handle pressure and change for a very short period of time. But anytime we as human beings, we're asked to really cope with something that is outside of our normal for a very long time, stress in its true sense, it can become overwhelming. And so it's really important to have that avenue to really decompress and thaw, as I call it. Even when I was going to school in New York, I often remember my boss at the time. He was a PhD scientist, and he said, Adanna, the higher up you go, the more important it is to mentally decompress. And important because there will be times that you will have lots of decisions to make, lots of challenges you may be faced with. And the more persons you're responsible for, it is even more important for you to be mentally clear when you're doing that. And so it should not be a one-time, decision that you make, but it should be something that you do routinely. And wellness is something very important. You should have a routine, whether it is going to the beach. When I started off the home isolation program, I knew that possibly getting an exercise at the usual hours that I would be a challenge. So I started running in the morning and walking. And that really allowed me to get clarity for the day, to be able to really plan and focus and see what I would need to do going forward to ensure that I am always on top of my game. And so it is having those type of mechanisms in place, someone to talk to, physical activity, eating well and sleeping, staying hydrated, that really not just benefits the physical body, but certainly benefits your mental well-being.
Right. All of the things that I guess we know, but we rarely put into practice, for whatever reason. But you mentioned some of the things, in terms of some of the problems that can contribute, I think, to mental unwellness. But what are the signs? We say talk to your friends. Suppose you don't, but your friends might still notice something. What do they do? If I and you, the two of us are friends, and you know that I have a particular type of personality, and you notice certain things, but I haven't mentioned anything, do I approach you about it? Do I mention it to another friend? What is the suggestion that we do?
Well, I think that really and truthfully, it starts from a place of trust and honesty and openness within your friendship or relationship that you may have with someone. Someone that you can trust really has your best interests at heart. Certainly if you come to someone and you say, I noticed that you're getting out really foolish, or you're not behaving yourself and you need help, that automatically puts a person on the defensive.
Quite.
But I would definitely say start off with saying, how are you? Something that is simple to ask but can really start a conversation. Within the medical communication model, we are with asking an open-ended question. What brings you here today? How can I help you? And allow for that person to speak. Nothing is different really with your interpersonal communication. And it really allows for that person to not be as guarded as possible, but they then allow for you to be the recipient of information. But certainly it also requires understanding boundaries and trust, that if some person comes to you with that information, that very protected information, that you don't take that information and you share it with someone else. And that is so very important. Unless it is, for instance, this person is now telling you, I feel that I am going to hurt myself, or I am thinking about hurting someone else. And then not only do you make a recommendation and say, well, I would love to help you, but maybe I don't have this skill set to best assist you. And I'm going to recommend some possibly who may be a lot more skilled at doing this than myself. And knowing your boundaries and be able to say, I think you should really talk to your primary care physician or even a psychologist or a psychiatrist and have that person reach out. And even if it means that you say, well, I will go with you so you don't feel uncomfortable, so that you don't feel that it is taboo, because it really shouldn't be taboo. You should really have that person, and sometimes it just takes some person being nice and quiet. They don't need to speak. They don't need to say anything. They just need to be a good listener. And if you're not at the stage where you think you can talk to someone, whether it's a friend or a professional, start off by writing it down. Sometimes even seeing what your thoughts are or how you're feeling about a situation helps you to get a bit more perspective on something. So I would say start by writing it down, document it in a diary, draw it out, really start to rationalize your thoughts and appreciate how you're feeling. I always tell patients that you should call an emotion when you see it. And certainly I have always practiced it in my medical practice, especially when I was working at accident and emergency. If you see a patient very aggressive, you should actually call it and say, I noticed that you're a bit upset and aggressive. Is there a particular reason why you're feeling like this? And don't simply just ask about it, address it. If you can, address what is the problem that is really causing that person that discomfort. that concern, that challenge, maybe you might be able to assist, or you may be able to refer that person to someone else who can assist them.
There's so many different levels to people. You never know what they're going through at any given moment. Just saying good morning to Roosevelt, who's saying hello to us from Flatbush. Certainly hope that you're safe where you are, Roosevelt, and that you continue to stay well. Dr. G, let me just ask you this. Now, how do you said you run, you said that sometimes you walk, but is the physical the only way you find you're happy? Do you read? Do you swim? Do you hang with your girls? Do you have a tribe?
Well, I am a beach person. I must admit to you, I've not been able to really take in the beach as often as I would have liked before, because unfortunately, and I would say this is probably one of the downsides of being in the program, and it's a program that is remote. I am usually connected quite often to my phone. And being at the beach means I am away from my phone, and if something should happen, then I cannot really assist someone in that regard. But I am a beach person. I am also a foodie at heart.
You are?
I am a foodie. Anything food, that is me. And I have always told persons there's nothing wrong with having good, tasty food. But I have probably, this is about, I would say, 3-4 years that I stopped eating just solely for my taste buds. I really started eating more for my overall health. So if I am going to have a good tasty meal, there must be some benefit to it. Right. Occasionally I might have some chocolates here and there, but I am a complete foodie, and it's really getting out, sometimes taking a drive, something as a simple drive in the country. It's something that I grew up doing with my parents and my family.
Yeah, we all
and
did.
I continue to do it. I continue to do it when I can, and it's also really connecting with friends and family. I love a good laugh. I love teamwork. But if I get the opportunity, for instance, we have the BDF Field Medical Facility. We work as a great team together. We have lots of activities together. So it's really an opportunity to really, be out there and really talk with your comrades and really interact with them. But then I take sometimes my late night hours just before I go to bed to either watch TV or certainly to read and catch up on COVID in that quiet time just before I go to sleep. And so I think that it has really served me well. I can't really complain at all. I am enjoying this journey. It has been challenging at times. It has been tough. But again, because I have a great support network, and these are professionals, sometimes the other doctors that I can bounce an idea off of, whether they're older than myself or around my age group. It's always very welcoming to be able to speak to other professionals and say, what do you think about this? I've seen this here in some of the research journals. Are you concerned? I am concerned, and this is why I'm concerned. And be able to have that dialogue and start that conversation. And then also speaking to your family. I think that family is key, really, in terms of you having that support mechanism. A lot of persons during this time, I know, especially with working from home and having kids, I don't have any kids of my own. But, it was a big change. It required more time management, and sometimes children respond differently than adults in terms of how things are affecting them. And sometimes really understanding how they are. But I would say if this particular period of time taught me anything, is really to give yourself grace. To really give yourself grace, to be able to say, today I gave 100% and that was my best, or I gave 150% and that was my best, and then another day I gave 70%, but that still was my best. And it's okay not to beat upon yourself, but really to give yourself some grace.
And I'm going to say thank you so much for joining us today. And there are two things that you said that I'd like everyone to perhaps jot down. I always tell you all to watch this show with a notepad and pen, but she used the words mental thaw, which I loved, because sometimes everything gets frozen up there and it really needs thawing. And then she just mentioned grace. But you gave some truly great advice, though, between those two thoughts. You know, in terms of mental wellness, your physical well-being, and then it's your overall well-being. And that's how we're going to fight this, and this is how we're going to continue to live with it for as long as it decides to be here. Thank you so much, Dr. G.
Thank you.
You stay
Thank you very much
safe
for
and
having me.
stay well.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Here on the Link Up today, our theme, finding your happy. However you do that, whatever you do, I hope that you find it. You find your happy. We all need something, you know, to just make us breathe. There you go. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, personal development coach Maria Collymore joins us as we search the way to find our happy. Today we're starting a new season of the Link Up, and we thought that it would be nice to have the topic finding your happy, and it falls within March 8th, which was International Women's Day, and March 20th, which is the International Day of Happiness. I know they have so many days, you know, but there are 365 days, so they're going to find a way to have a special day for each one eventually, I am sure. But today is March 17th, and we thought, you know, we'd invite some really strong ladies to join us for our first day of our new season, and to share with us how they find their happy. Our first two, Dr. the Most Honourable Songee Beckles and Dr. Adana Grandison, were both, and still are, both on the front line. However, our next guest is a personal development coach, and she will go through with us ways that we can find our happy, some tips, and also help us to cope. How do we cope? You know, find that strength and so on to just move on. And that's Maria Collymore. Good morning, Maria.
Good morning, Peter. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you going?
I am.
Yeah, you're looking well. You're looking well. Now I
I'm working
know,
on it.
yes, yeah, it's a work in progress over this side as well. That's what I like to say. But tell me, because I don't know if you managed to hear the chat that I had just now with Dr. G, but she mentioned the beach, and I know that that is one of your areas of happy.
Listen, what you can't see on the screen is my mermaid tail because yeah, that's how much beach she's doing.
Oh my
Actually,
goodness.
when she was talking about that, I'm thinking how important it is to have that thing that makes you truly happy. And I have found surrounding myself with beauty helps me to be extremely happy. So when I get out in nature of any kind, but the beaches is my favorite one. But if I get near a few trees or grow a garden, I'm equally elated. And I try to send it some love so it can send me some love. And feel it, just feel it through waves. I'm always telling my swimmers, don't just get in the water and start swimming. Get in that water, connect with the water, and feel the joy of being it. Makes a vastly better sense.
And at this time of year, feel the coldness of that water. Because let me tell you, it needs a little warmth.
Yeah,
Um,
oh my goodness.
yeah, but even
I was
that
ready
feels really, really good.
super. And it's lasted longer than normal. Normally by April it's warm again. Normally by now it started. It's no less cold than April.
And later in the day with the sun shining, it's still got a chill to it.
I've tried all
But
types of day and
Maria, we've been talking about finding your happy, but perhaps we should, say what happy is. Because it's not that we're saying that you're laughing all of the time and, that you're full of joie de vivre and you have a smile on your face from ear to ear 24/7. That's not it. If you had to describe happy, what would happy be?
happy for me would be radiating my God. And I feel like there are times when you're right, it isn't the smile. It's this calmness and that everything is I'm managing. Even if things are helter skelter, they're not perfect. I still feel like I've got this and I haven't given up on myself. I feel like for me, some days I always tell people I have flu. I'm down. And other days then I am absolutely fine. Like full of laughter, I'm full of ease. Life is I got good perspective. I'm not letting my mind torture me. And so it's hard for me to just put it into a simple box, but I like to think of it as me radiating the God within. So when I remember I'm not actually having to do this, I can put it in his hands. I tend to be a lot later. Like, oh, this can fix itself. This is gonna be fine. But sometimes, before that, it's a case of you feel like you have to handle all of it. And it's overwhelming because it's a lot to handle. Our new life is the new pace we go at, the expectations are amazing and they're hard. And sometimes you have to take a step back from what societal demands are and find your own little spot that allows you to breathe. The way I want to breathe it. Not what everybody else says, but what I can manage with it. The
I like
70% has done.
Yes, I like you said, radiating the God within. You know, we haven't touched on the importance of spirituality in finding your happy. For me, happy is feeling at peace. content. Yes, I might be laughing or chuckling, but it's not constant. But it is that feeling of peace. It's all right. You know, yes, stuff may be happening, but at this particular point in time, I'm at peace, I'm Zen. And that I find from meditation. That's one of the ways I find my happy. But I think that when you mentioned, you know, everything is happening and you're keeping busy, so you don't stop for like 10 minutes and just be still and breathe. And then get up and go again. But, you know, that's so critical. But I interrupted you. Sorry, continue.
We talk about mental health a lot, right? But we forget emotional health, because it's the emotional health that then deteriorates the mental. And a lot of us, you understand putting a Band-Aid on a cut, you need to understand when it comes to emotional health, it's going to require the same Band-Aid stuff. And one of the Band-Aids that I like people to use is to acknowledge, what emotion am I actually going through right now? Like, am I scared? Am I upset? Am I frustrated? Am I having a mix? Because regular is the a blend of frustration, a blend of feeling hopeless, a blend of, and you have to stop and take stock of this moment. Because what I find terrorizes us is being caught in our past or our future and forgetting our now. So when you talked about taking a moment to breathe, exactly. What does this moment present you? Are you in danger in this moment? Is something wrong with you in this moment? And if it isn't, then let's take stock of that. Okay. So I've got this moment managed. I can manage the next one. I can manage the upcoming one. But let me work out what I feel right now so that I can make peace with it. Because it needs breathing. It needs to breathe. Whether it be anger, whether it be frustration, whether it be terror, whether it be frightened, it needs to breathe. This is what I am in this. But it doesn't define all of my moods. And we talked through it, something the doc said about people fearing mental health and things like depression and other things like that. And what I want people to know is depression isn't a state. It's not something you stay in. It's where your body uses to work. So we go a little low, our energy goes down a bit. So it's coping with the background noise. And then it will come back up after you cope with it, right?
Yeah.
But we shouldn't fear it. We shouldn't label ourselves as, you know, we're not depressed. No, I'm having a moment. I'm having a period. It'll pass as soon as some other things clear, but it's okay. I don't have to fear it. I don't have to be ashamed of it. I just have to acknowledge this is where I'm at today. Today, my system got a lot going on. And I think we forget that a lot is locked into our memory. So you could smell something and it bring back a memory that you never dealt with. So all of a sudden you sad. It had nothing to do with what was going on with you, know? But you can't necessarily find it either. You just gotta let it pass. You just gotta let it breathe. So acknowledge and okay, this is how I'm feeling.
What about the people who don't acknowledge it, Maria? Who experience things, you know, and they feel that they don't need to even acknowledge it. You know, if I think it'll go away and then I'll be all right again. But sure, it stays there somewhere, lingering.
Thoughts are energy, and energy doesn't die. It just finds new places to go. So when you suppress an emotion, it's come out as a word or a bubble or a pain in your back or some funny little growth on the thing. And you're looking at yourself going, where did that come from? It came because you suppressed some emotions you chose not to deal with. And lots of people do. I was doing a workshop on loss and grief. And we were discussing the grief of a recent friend. And when the members started to share, it turned out that they had not even dealt with the grief of their parents 20, 30 years ago. which is just says how much we ignore our emotional state. We think, oh, let me just move along. This is an uncomfortable feeling, so let's just move past it and go to the next step. I know I used to be that all the time. It would be a Mara always has to stay happy, and I had to address that led to a great depression because I was not really dealing with all the things that were upsetting and scary and left me in an emotional spin. And I would it would come up in my behavior or it might come up in my health. I would end up with these ridiculous conditions. Like
Hmm.
I never got out of the three things like that, which I'm convinced are all attached also to your emotional state. So you have to do some emotional work. And I keep telling people that that is equally important. Don't just dismiss your emotions. There are indicators. They're indicators of where you're at, what's
Be
going on with
honest.
you.
Be
But you
honest
also
with
can.
yourself.
Are you honest with yourself? Lots of
Yeah,
people don't like that.
yeah. Be honest with
That's key.
yourself. You know, if someone asks you if you're okay, you know, hi, how are you? I'm good. Are you really? You know? But then there are those men who they ask you, you know, hey, how you doing? And you go, nah, I could be better. Oh, great! You know, and they have not heard a single thing you said. I'm sorry. That cracks me up every time.
And you are already on to the next station long before the person answers. But on top of what I wanted, I stopped asking already. It's too long. It leaves you overwhelmed because there's so many aspects. So I asked, so, what are the best things going on with you and the worst things that are going on? Because, yeah, you can remember your best. Sometimes when you remember your worst thing, your worst thing is better than thing. But sometimes we either dwell on one or the other. And it's thing to stay positive. You gotta stay positive. You gotta acknowledge where you're at. And then incrementally to better. Don't jump to that. Not dismiss how you're feeling. If you're angry, from angry to upset, from upset to frustrated, keep moving up the ladder till you're good again. But don't jump with, oh, let me just dismiss that I'm angry. I technically like and just move to the next stage. That makes it more stressful.
Right.
So to be kind to you, just acknowledge, yeah, right now I am pretty bad. I am, but I'm not gonna stay here. And now that I understand or now that I get it, okay, what are the benefits of knowing this information? Because remember, all this is heaven and hell. Make you happy in heaven and make you happy in hell, right? If you want to get out of hell, move towards heaven. What does it
Right.
take to get to? And then make those steps towards getting to heaven. I like my heaven, so you know what? I'm trying to get there. That's what it
Radiating
is.
the God within.
Always,
Yeah.
always.
Thank you
You
so
have to
much, Maria. Thank
so
you.
I was gonna say all this spiritual,
Yes.
and you have to remember we're just having a human experience. Be a little kinder to yourself, not more compassion.
Thank you. Stay safe and stay well.
Have a
Maria
great day.
Collymore, definitely a personal development coach joining us right here on the Link Up as we find our happy today. And there are many ways that people do that. Some travel. Yeah. Let's talk about tourism and let's talk about finding happiness there with tourism consultant Dr. Kerry Hall when we come back. Dr. Kerry Hall is a tourism consultant, and I thought that it would be, really, really great to try and I don't know, pick her brain about, I don't know, wellness tourism. If there's such a phrase, I think there is. We've got everything like heritage and sports and so on. And Barbados is such a wonderful place, gifted with wonderful sun and sea and sand and really great people. I thought that it'd be nice if, we could sell wellness as a thing. Kerry, welcome. Nice to have you join us today.
Thank you so much, Peta. Thank you. Hello, Barbados, and everyone who's watching us today. Thanks for having me.
I know that you are always full of really great ideas when it comes to this country of ours and putting us on the international market. And today our theme is finding your happy. So I wanted to take a look at, our tourism industry coming out of COVID. What are your observations now as we step back into a new normal and start thinking of new ways of selling us?
Yes. You are absolutely spot on in terms of reimagining our tourism industry, particularly in a post-COVID environment. And what I thought or hoped would have been post-COVID, we see now we have another variant coming down the chute. So I'm saying, oh dear, back around in Mulberry Bush. But if there's one thing that's wonderful about the human race, we are adaptable. We adapt to circumstances, and we have. Just when we thought we could not get through this, we have adapted. But from the perspective of health and wellness, I think it's very timely that you have chosen this topic today. Because health and wellness tourism is, before COVID, it was the fastest growing segment of the industry, growing 6.5% between 2015 and 2017. And of course, that came to a screeching halt. It was growing at twice as fast as the overall tourism industry, the global tourism industry. And it is purported, or it is predicted, that this segment or this niche area of health and wellness would resume its previous position as being the fastest growing segment for many, many obvious reasons. As you well know, coming out of COVID has been very, very hard on a lot of us. People have been cooped up for the last 2 years. They've been isolated. A lot of us have experienced extreme mental health situations. And now that we're able to travel, and I really hope that this new variant does not shut, because as you can see, the pent-up demand tourism has bounced back. You could just look around Barbados and see that.
Yes.
And people are looking for health and wellness activities. They're looking for fresh air, open space, nature. You find that around the world, RV camping has taken off, particularly in the States and Europe. People are staying in vacation rentals in order to avoid the crowds in hotels. They're glamping, they're camping, they're going to parks and mountains.
Wait. Pause. Glamping?
Yes.
Okay, I'm learning something here. What that was, when you say yes, girl, so it's glamorous or something? What, glam?
It's glamorous, yes.
Oh!
Yes. Camping is really that. It's glamorous camping.
Oh!
So for these people who want to rough it, but don't really want to go the whole gamut, they still want some conveniences of home. So you find in these camps or these tents, there's electricity, there's running water, there's like gourmet cuisine. So the higher end of the market who want to go into nature. And this is something that has been going for quite a few years, but has really been exacerbated or has proliferated in these COVID times.
I think I like that because that's why I don't camp, because there's no electricity. So I love it. Glamping.
Yes.
Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
That's okay. So, people are looking for fresh, seasonal food, farm-to-table cuisine. They want rehabilitation, rejuvenation, particularly for mental health, to restore their mental health.
Right.
So they want hiking, biking, and the thing is about Barbados is we can offer
All of
this.
those things.
Barbados has, we have focused on a sand, sea, and sun model for the last 60 or 70 years. We now need to diversify our tourism product. We need to be attracting this type of more environmentally and socially conscious traveler. You find like the health and wellness traveler, for example, or even the cultural heritage traveler, they earn more. The health and wellness traveler earns $1,528 dollars. They spend, sorry, on average when they travel,
Okay.
$1,528, which is 53% more than a traditional traveler. They're interested in eco activities, volunteerism activities. They want to give back to communities. They want to support, local small businesses and the local economy. So this is the type of traveler that brings value,
Right.
right? And they're
Yes.
the high yield traveler that have the money to spend. It's not mass tourism. It's, so these niche areas can be layered on top of our sand, sea, and sun tourism model, increase our market share, and definitely increase spend to the island and opportunities for more individuals, particularly in the rural communities, to get involved and get their fair share of the economy.
Well, when you look at the rural communities, Kerry, I mean, one of the things that we had when we were locked down, lots of opportunities to just do nothing else but think, and one of the things I remembered was that I'm older than you are, so I don't know if you would remember, but when people were really, when people were ill, especially with respiratory problems, they'd always send you to the East Coast. You would go out to a beach house there or something, or visit somebody who lives on that side of the island. Why? Because that clean, fresh breeze coming straight across, unhindered, exactly. So that's one of the things I was thinking. Well, hello, if you have COVID and bad chest and everything, that would be really great right now. Nice and fresh.
You are so spot on.
Invite people to come and stay on the East Coast.
Yes. You see, as a mature tourism destination like Barbados is, we have to be able to reinvent our product to the world, our tourism offering to the world in a very new and exciting way. And Barbados can do this because there are a lot of things that we have not really explored to their full capacity, that we can now do that and repackage our experiences of tourism offering to the world and reinvent our tourism product overnight.
Right.
Just what you said, when tourism began in Barbados back in the 1700s, or we going way back, George Washington was our first really famous
Wellness tourism, exactly.
1751, he came here, he brought his brother Lawrence, who had tuberculosis. Barbados was the place to come because of our natural attributes back then. We had our bracing trade winds coming off the Atlantic Ocean. We had year-round sunshine. We were a cooler climate. We had excellent quality water, and we had an even year-round temperature. All this combined to create Barbados became a health resort of worldwide fame back in the 18th and 19th centuries. So people who had pulmonary diseases, those are respiratory diseases of the lung, similar to COVID, came to Barbados to be healed.
Yeah.
So visitors were coming from Europe, from England, from South America, the Caribbean, were flocking to Barbados. And it was not the West Coast, the Platinum Coast today, that where these people went, that was a mosquito infested spot, not suitable for hotel development. East Coast, Bathsheba, and the East Coast was the mecca of tourism back then. That's why when they had the railway train that ran from Town to Belle Plaine, that is what exacerbated, or that is what facilitated the development of early tourism in Barbados back in the 1700s or 1800s. Well, the 1800s, because the train, came about in the late 19th century. So yes, so the early form of tourism, before it was called tourism, in Barbados. So Barbados has this very rich and compelling story to tell. People love the story that could put us at a competitive advantage to all our competition around the world. Everybody's going health and wellness. Guess what? Barbados was the pioneer of health and wellness in the Western Hemisphere.
There you go.
We need to really capitalize on our strengths, and those are one of our strengths and something we could do really well. We need to shift a little bit. We are talking blue all these years. We now need to complement that blue with a little bit of green and get our people up into the hills of Barbados, the west, the north, and spread that tourism from the coastlines into the rural areas. Creating opportunities for more people.
I saw some footage on Facebook, and it was of Wales, off the north, there by the restaurant at Animal Flower Cave or whatever, up that side. And, there are people who follow Wales.
Dominica has a version
exactly,
industry, for example. So what I'm saying is Barbados,
there's
we have
lots
so
of
much
opportunity.
right? We have new things coming on stream like Cocoa Hill, Nature's Reserve, Peg Farm. We have all our beautiful gardens. We have many hiking, biking. We have so many opportunities to further promote and develop this health and wellness product for Barbados. And it isn't funny. And it's going to bring us the type of visitor we want. And Barbados has so much potential in this area that the time is now that we need to start heavily promoting and marketing and developing this.
And here's another thought, and nobody's paying me for this. Codrington College, one of the best kept secrets this island has. Can you imagine those plastic surgeons that would love to send their patients to recuperate over here? They could go to Codrington College. I mean,
it's a sanctuary.
Yeah,
it is a sanctuary. Yeah. And like when you look at a property or like an establishment like Naniki, for example, I just went up there and interviewed Mr. Tom Hines. When everybody was looking to put their hotels and their accommodation on the coastline and the beaches, inland tourism was like nothing more than a risky and almost a crazy endeavor to think you were going to go and put a property in the inland part of the island. Because you remember Villanova, they did that I think in 2001, and it was not successful.
Unfortunately,
I think it was 20 years ahead of its time.
I think so.
But when you look at Mr. Tom Hines, who put those beautiful cottages right there, when you go to Naniki, the climate, like he said, the temperature there is like 3 to 4 degrees cooler than the rest of Barbados. The beautiful view, those bracing, the healthy ozone and that bracing trade winds coming off of the Atlantic Ocean, some of the freshest air in the world. It has to have a medicinal and a healing effect on you. So there are people out there who've been doing this. They just need now to put some structure around it and deliver it, package it, and deliver it to the world.
Future looks really, really bright if we can harness all of this. And it will also benefit people in the way that we are talking today, in finding they're happy. How do you find yours, Kerry? Apart from talking about tourism, which makes you very passionate.
Yes.
Apart from that, how do you find you're happy?
Sometimes happy is unfortunately an ever elusive quality that we seek to attain, and sometimes it eludes us. And I think happiness is something you have to find from within.
Yep.
There's some days where I don't feel happy at all. And it's either because something personal, something professional. I feel I'm not fulfilling my purpose here on earth. And so I feel something is missing, but I can't quite wrap my fingers around it. And that emptiness inside of you brings unhappiness. And we sometimes think that happiness can be found in someone else, or if I find the right mate, or if I am rich, if I have a big house. We think we can find happiness in material things. But we just could take Hollywood as an example, and the people who live there who are multi-millionaires, and they're unhappy. Some of them unfortunately end their lives, etc. So it makes you stop and think and say, what really is happiness? Because I would have thought they would have been happiness, fame, fortune, the world at their fingertips.
Yep.
So our definition of happy is different for everyone else. My definition of happy is being true to your own self, taking life by the scruff of its neck and just living it to its fullest. Easier said than done, because sometimes we're afraid of our own light. We're a little bit cautious, we doubt ourselves, and we think, who am I to think I can be this? But I believe
as women, not crossing you, which is exactly what I'm doing, so I do apologize. But
problem.
as women, it seems as though we have this guilt gene that has wrapped itself tightly in the DNA molecule, so that, you know, you're guilty. You just feel this guilt. I should be doing. Why in a, you know, yeah.
Burden is heavier on us women
Yeah.
than men, for example, because you're right. We always feel, you know, our maternal instinct, we carry the burden, sometimes the excess of the burden. In the workplace, it's more difficult. The rules are different from men than they are for women. I think we have it harder. We're not paid as much. You know, if we're passionate like myself, you're told, oh, you're too emotional. You know what I mean? If a man is assertive, the woman is the B word. So everywhere you look, especially as women, we find burdens that would erode the happiness index that we would have for ourselves. So that's why, as I said, you have to be really confident and you really have to tap into your own self. How many of us stand up and eyeball ourselves in the mirror? How much we live, we exist, we get up every morning and put one foot in front of the other. How many of us really, over a lifetime, I think some of us live and die and never get to happiness. You may go on a trip, as you said earlier, you may have money so you don't have to worry about bills, but if it's not the bills, trust me, it's going to be something else. I believe happiness comes from within.
Thank you very much, Kerry. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we're going to continue this sometime throughout this season, because I think that it's necessary more so now than ever, you know, and let us find our happy. And I like that. Happiness starts from in here. Yes. Stay safe, my friend. Nice to see you.
Lovely, as always, to see you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, hon. Take care.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Dr. Kerry Hall, very, very passionate tourism consultant, some wonderful ideas, and, you know, finding your happy. And I like, she says that it comes from within. Well, people, you know, usually equate the Irish with being very happy. And today, more so than ever, the 17th of March, St. Paddy's Day, they say. We're going to chat with Loreto Duffy-Mayers, and we're going to find out just what makes them happy on St. Patrick's Day, and how do they celebrate it. And let's just talk about the luck of the Irish when we come back. It's March 17th, it's St. Patrick's Day. It's a day celebrated around the world, and you wonder who just was St. Patrick, and why is this day so important? And, you know, let's just see if we can find out from one of the Irish. And we have I like to call her an Irish Barbadian. here on island. Loreto, Duffy-Mayers, welcome. Nice to see you. Happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm not hearing you for some reason.
Oh my goodness, no.
Oh, there, I can hear you now. I can hear you now.
Oh, good, good.
Great. So, tell me about St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's, why is this day celebrated?
Well, St. Patrick, you know, there's a lot of unknowns really about St. Patrick. I mean, they tell us that he may have come from Wales, that he was a slave, and he was brought to Ireland. We are told it could be the year 432. Sometimes we hear the year 467. But either ways, we know that he certainly died on the 17th of March. That is why St. Patrick's Day is celebrated on that date. But he is the one who is accredited with bringing Christianity to Ireland. Mm-hmm. We do hear all sorts of stories about he banished the snakes from Ireland and that, but I don't think we ever did have snakes, and I think maybe it's again part of the legend where he probably is more accountable for banishing the non-Christian thoughts from Ireland more so than anything else, you know.
But Ireland is, you know, so, I don't know, rife with mystery and myth. And I'm thinking of the leprechauns and the pot of gold and the rainbow and so on. And I made that comment to you the other day. You said, but it's not a myth. I believe in it. So,
well, we are very, 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 very famous for storytelling.
Yes. And
to be perfectly honest with you, particularly tall stories. And, you know, forgive the pun, but most of the tall stories are about the little people, you know, and as kids, we grew up hearing about the fairies at the bottom of the garden. And, you know, when you had a coal fire back in the days, when you saw the wisps of colour coming out of the fire, we were told they were the fairies, you know, but the leprechauns, you know, the leprechaun has always been part of Irish mythology, but I think it was probably brought you know, into the rest of the world, like, you know, by Hollywood, basically. I think in particular, maybe Walt Disney, when they came out with the movie in the 50s, like Darby O'Gill and the Little People. Yes. But we, you know, always had stories. And the story goes that a farmer caught a leprechaun one day, and the leprechauns were not allowed to tell lies. But once he was caught, he was obliged to tell the farmer where the pot of gold was. And so he brought the farmer into a forest, and he pointed out a tree, and he said that the crock of gold was at the end of it, was under the tree. So the farmer left the leprechaun there and told him to put a red ribbon around the tree so he would know which tree to come back to. He had to go and get, obviously, a spade to go and dig out the crock of gold. But when he came back, every tree had a red ribbon around it, and the leprechaun didn't know where it was been. So.
I love it. And it's that, I think, which makes, you know, Irish legendary. Also the pubs and drinking, but you know, yeah, they're known for being able to tip back pretty well. But I just love the whole idea. I mean, the world has caught on. Chicago, they dyed their river or lake or something green for March 17th, you know. And how many Irish are there worldwide rather than in Ireland? Because I found those numbers interesting.
Yeah, we currently have a population, I think it's around just under maybe 5 million in Ireland, but the diaspora, they say, could be up to 70 million.
That's
you know,
amazing.
I mean, in the United States, well, the United States alone, I think, is very close on 40 million. And this is why the Irish vote is so popular, you know, and so needed, I think, you know, in the United States. I mean, there's Irish in Australia, obviously the UK. South America, we have a significant Irish population, or Irish heritage. Yes. Because going back to the 1800s, you know, when Ireland was under very heavy British rule, we had a terrible potato famine. You know, potato, as you well know, was the Irish staple. And the potato famine at the time, the population of Ireland was allegedly around about 8 million. And half those people left or died. I think in the region of about 2 million died, but another 2 left. And they went various places. Most probably went to England, but a large proportion went out to the United States. And another group went down to Argentina in particular, because there was sheep farming there, and that was something that the Irish knew very well about. We also had Cromwell, of course, who took up a lot of Irish people and sent Irish people out to the West Indies and out to Australia. But the Irish are basically all over the world at this point.
Right. Well, I know that I was going to say that we part of our heritage and our history as well are the Irish, and you just mentioned because of Cromwell. But when I asked you about celebrations of St. Patrick's Day, you said that your memories of celebration were not like today. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I think back in when I was a kid, St. Patrick's Day was a religious festival, and it was like a Sunday. So you went to mass, and then we did have a parade, but it was a parade it wasn't the spectacle like Carnival or Cadumant or anything like that. It was marching bands, and most of them, were we did get bands coming in from the UK and the US and that, but they tended to be, playing the sort of marching music. It wasn't we didn't have floats as such, but that's changed. Nowadays we do have quite a very big parade, but it would still be nothing like what you're getting in the United States. And now that, of course, that we're part of the European Union, all of the rules have changed about the pub opening hours. Whereas back in my day, like I said, it was a Sunday, so the pub would have had to close at 10 o'clock. Nowadays it's wide open, and you follow the same European rules where they probably close at 1 or 2 or whenever, now. And especially on a day like St. Patrick's Day, there's lots of activities and plenty of things to do and places to go, everything. So
why green? What's the emphasis on green? Why do people wear green? Why are things painted green and colored green? What's it about green?
Well, it's interesting that green I think is more focused on the colour of Ireland, because there are parts of Ireland where we get rain every single day. And Ireland, there was a song written about Ireland called the 40 Shades of Green, which most people would know. But it is, I think, reflective of what Ireland looks like. But it's interesting that we do have a colour called St. Patrick's Blue. And St. Patrick was associated with the colour blue up until probably the last century sometime. And now, obviously, green. And then our flag is green, white and orange. So we do have the green in there as well.
I heard somewhere that people wore green to be invisible to the leprechauns. I don't know if that's true. Maybe that's another tall Irish tale, because apparently they used to pinch them or something like that.
Right, yeah. We there are a few of those kind of stories around too, yes. Yeah. Wearing green, you would blend in very well in the background in Ireland, I can tell you,
So how are you going to celebrate today? Are you going to celebrate today?
Well, I think I have a few friends out there, who will claim to be Irish if they're not actually born and raised in Ireland. That will be looking to have a beer or two. So I might find a few of them for sure, Unfortunately, we won't be able to probably get our traditional dish, which actually, of bacon and cabbage.
Bacon and cabbage. So it's not okay. Although
not corned beef.
Not corned beef.
No, we didn't know about corned beef back in the day. The Irish ate bacon, and it wasn't until it wasn't until the Irish in the United States found that the corned beef, which is basically brisket, which has been salted for as a preservative, I think. It wasn't until they found that was more affordable than bacon, and that is when the corned beef became the sort of more traditional Irish food than bacon was.
Right.
But in Ireland, we always had bacon and cabbage. And back in the days when people didn't have stoves, you cooked on the fire, and so you could only use one pot at a time. So basically, you boiled the bacon until about half an hour before the end, and then the cabbage was put in there, and that was how the cabbage got the flavour. At most, I would think maybe celery and carrots was put in, into the pot, because we were not big on seasonings and things in those days, and it was served with potato.
Interesting. So, okay, bacon and cabbage.
Bacon and cabbage, yes.
Forget the whole idea about corned beef and cabbage.
Well, you get corned beef in the States, I think.
In the
but
States,
you won't get in Ireland.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Yeah. So, beer is the number one drink of the Irish, you would say?
Well, Guinness. Guinness is what we're famous for.
Right. That's what Stout.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And whiskey. Or whiskey with an E.
Huh?
Whiskey with an E.
Oh, EY?
Whenever you see whiskey with an EY, that's the Irish whiskey.
Well, I think that's the way we spell it here as well. I think the one with the Y is American, isn't it?
No, well, it's a Scotch whiskey. Is,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're with the EY. You see, you're learning tons of things here today. And I really and truthfully want you to tell me another tall tale. I love them. It's almost like I would love to put your tall tales up against Bernancy, or a legged wicked spider, all these stories with Anansi and so on. But tell me another tall tale.
Storytelling was very much a part of the Irish culture, and we back in the days before there was television and there was electricity, we had what was called the Shanachie, and the Shanachie was usually a man, but not always, usually a man that travelled all over the country. He went from village to village, and he would stop off at a house, and all the neighbours would gather around the fire, and the Shanachie would tell stories, and he did that in return for a bed and food and drinks, and then he would move on to the next into the next town. But even up to probably around about 2000, certainly on television in Ireland, we had storytellers that as kids we used to watch television and listen to some of the stories from the Shanachie. But I know some of my school friends and some of my Irish friends living in Barbados are going to cringe at the mention of a female Shanachie called Peg Sayers, who we were, for want of a better word, I would say, we were forcibly encouraged to read and listen to in school, who she told horror stories of life in the harsh life off the west coast of Ireland and the islands. And, it was part of our Irish curriculum for us to read the stories of Peg Sayers. And I know I can see some of my friends, I can see their faces going, why did she have to bring that up? It was a part of our culture that we had to read about. But nevertheless, it was all to do with the culture of storytelling and the culture of communication.
Right.
And some of the greatest writers in the world have come out of Ireland, some of the greatest poets and that. And so, tall tales definitely are part of the culture. You've probably heard of Gulliver's Travels, and that's
course.
written, and so we've, in fact, Dracula was written by an Irishman.
Bram Stoker was Irish?
Bram Stoker, yes, lived very close to where my own father came from.
Wow.
And from Clontarf, the Crescent in Clontarf again. And so that's, he is the person that invented Dracula. So these are other stories that people are not really even
Well, that's
aware
a tall
of
tale that everyone believes nowadays, isn't it? So I'm not surprised it's Irish. Thank you so much, Loreto. I wish that we had more time, but I'm going to definitely make space because we want to make linkages all over the world, and I mean, what better place than Ireland and their tales that we can have here on the Link Up later on. So happy St. Patrick's Day to you.
And the
Thank you
very
for
same to you.
joining us. Thank you.
Okay, Peta.
And thank you all so much for spending the first, day of the new season of the Link Up with me. Make a note that, it's now Thursdays. So looking forward to being with you again next week. As a matter of fact, next week, talk about another interesting lady. Dr. Shanda Prescott is going to join us, Barbadian, living overseas, and a neuroscientist, well, a rocket scientist and into space and all of that sort of thing. Well, we're going to find out just what she does when you join us next Thursday. Stay safe and stay well.